Brett Rieman, what's going on, man?
Great. No, thanks for having me.
I'm glad to have you here in the real estate world as well. You guys got about 700 units or so that you guys have developed, so it's a little bit different than us. So I'm excited to, not doing any development. I'm excited to hear some of your story and how you guys do what you do and what you guys look for and all that stuff. But you're an inspiration, man. You're a success story.
Oh, thank you. No, I love talking real estate, so I'm happy that you have me here, and welcome to answer any questions and dive into whatever you want me to do.
Are you originally from Wisconsin?
McFarland, yeah, just
okay.
a few miles from here, actually.
Yeah.
So born and raised.
What got you into the real estate game?
A college professor.
Okay.
Went to community college, Whitewater, not too far from here, and going there for finance. Didn't really know what I wanted to do in life. Thought maybe a financial advisor or something. And there was a professor there that did commercial real estate here in Madison.
Okay.
And he would just do real life deals and mostly commercial real estate. So like office leasing, retail leasing, a little bit of investment, and obviously perked up a little bit and thought that was pretty interesting, and took 2 more of his classes at Whitewater. So I ended up being 3 real estate classes there, and graduated from college and still didn't know if I wanted to do financial advising or real estate. So kind of put feelers out for both, had some interviews for both, and ended up going full-time into real estate brokerage, commercial real estate brokerage.
Okay.
Right out of college, being a leasing broker for a local developer who had a lot of office buildings. So just got into there, but there was a guy at the office that was a real estate investor. And at the time, I didn't really know too much about multifamily investing or commercial investing.
So it was a management company you worked for, the actual owner you worked for?
It was a management company, and they had other brokers there that did office leasing, but also did investment.
Okay.
And
so then at that management company, there was another investor that you got to know?
Another broker investor, did broker for his day job, but also investing on the side.
Okay.
Also sold investment real estate.
Okay.
So he one day, about 4 months after I started working there as a broker, he's like, "Hey, you should look at these 2 4-units and that I'm selling."
What year was this?
1998.
Okay.
So yeah, it
2 4
ages
units.
me a little bit.
You picked those up for like $15,000 a unit, or what?
It was cheap. It was $159,900. Offered him full price.
That was for all 8 units?
That was for 4. So my business partner now, Brian Spanos, and I each bought one. At the time, we were just buddies. We went to high school together, college together. He was a residential broker. I was a commercial real estate broker, right? So we're still in the real estate path, but we had not invested in any real estate yet.
Yeah.
And called him up and I said, "Hey, there's these 2 4-units that are available. We should buy them." "How are we going to do that?" "I don't know. Let's go figure it out."
What was it like back then? Did you have to? I say back then. I was 10 or 11 then. I was born in '89. Did you guys even have to put any money down?
So so I was 22. Living at my mom's house, right? And didn't have any money, right? Living on a straight commission. And basically we had to put 10% down, which I didn't have, nor did my now business partner. So we each took out home equity line of credits on our parents' homes.
There you go.
So we got our 15, 16 grand that they willingly gave us and trusted us with, and got our 10% down, and we each lived in one of the units.
Okay.
And cut our teeth in management, and we're horrible at it. But yeah, that was kind of our first venture into real estate.
When you went to McFarland High School?
Yep.
Did you know, like, when you went to college, do you have any idea what you want to do? You just thought,
no
idea.
Next phase of life, I went to Platteville my first year, which is an engineering kind of school here in Wisconsin. Thought I was going to be an engineer. Dropped all my classes after the first 3 weeks because I figured out I wasn't going to be an engineer.
Yeah,
so then transferred to Whitewater to be more business oriented. Still had no idea. And again, like I said, all through college, didn't really know what I wanted to do. Maybe something finance, something money related. But really, until I hit that, got into some of those classes with a professor, piqued my interest on real estate a little bit, but I had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
Then once I became a broker, I didn't think I was going to be investing in real estate until I met that gentleman that I worked with that just started talking to me, kind of mentoring me on what real estate investment is. And
what was it what attracted you to the financial world, money? Because I think that's a crazy thing, right? You get it was the same thing for me too, but except for when I was in college, it wasn't like any of my classes or one professor or whatever. I mean, my parents ran a business, but still, even in high school and growing up, I never realized that's what I wanted to do. I got to college, I started reading like Rich Dad Poor Dad, Trump, Art of the Deal, and that's where I'm like, man, this is what I want to do.
Yep.
What was it for you that, I mean, was it just the one professor that led you to, or were you, before that professor, it kind of seemed like you already had an interest in money and finance. What was it that sparked that interest?
Yeah, I had some interest in college. I was not a super motivated guy in college. I was more of in the party mode and let's go have a bunch of fun rather than focusing on what my career was going to be.
Yeah.
But I did know that, grew up not in a very high, influential family, right? We didn't have a lot of money. So I wanted to have some freedom that way, but it wasn't the thing that was driving me.
Yeah.
Once I got out of college, figured out, wow, I need to make some money. Let's figure out how to do it. And then you go straight into a commission job, which in commercial real estate, like residential real estate, any commission job, you're not making a lot of money the first few years anyways. Mm-hmm. So like, all right, how do I figure out how to make more money? Because I'm seeing the guys around me who are in the business for 15, 20 years, and they're coming in a few hours a day. They're driving nice cars. They have taken vacations all the time. Like, what is going on here, right? So, and a lot of those guys all had real estate investment properties.
Yeah.
So it piqued my interest, like just the lifestyle of it. Like, okay, how can I get freedom by doing one? Is this real estate thing going to be something I can create freedom with? And then how do I do it?
Yeah.
And
what's your definition of freedom?
Just flexibility to do what you want.
Yeah.
Right. And to be able to do what you want with your family, with your friends.
What you want, when you want, where you want, however you want to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, you mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Read that early on, maybe within 6 months of graduating college. Someone gave me that book, probably in the office, and opened my eyes to a lot of things too.
So other than, what'd you do? Because obviously like the first 4 or 8 units that you had, it wasn't going to add that much more money each month to the bottom line. What were you doing to get more money?
It was, so for us, kind of this, when I say us, my now business partner, we kind of had parallel paths where we would invest together on some properties and maybe buy some properties separately. Mm-hmm. But in the first 10 years, let's just say from 1998 to 2010, we bought maybe 30 units, 30 to 40 units, right? We didn't have a lot of money. We bought a 4-unit. I bought a 4-unit. He bought one. I live in one for a couple of years, do it again. Yep. And then just had that slow path. I mean, and back then, 2005 to 2008, prices were really high like they are now. So like, this doesn't make any sense. And so let's say we had 30 units at the time, like, okay, we're going to buy some more properties. We're going to turn them over to a management company. Well,
third party? When you say management company,
third party. Well, we thought that we turn them over. It opens up our, flexibility a little bit more. But then, 6 months later, they're asking us for checks.
Amen, brother.
Like, what is going on here? I thought you pay us, not we pay you. It's cash flowing properties when we turn them over. But again, we learned early on, no one's going to manage a property like an owner. And so we had to create our own management company at that time.
It's funny because when we were talking a little bit before on the hallway, just talking about how you manage your own properties, but really don't do any third party.
Right.
Just like us. It's usually guys like us, but if that's the story, we kind of all have the story of, okay, bought a property, handed it over to third party property management, and they drove
the dream, right? Yeah.
They just drove it into the ground. Yeah. And I mean, the first bigger property that I had was, I've shared this on the podcast before, so I don't need to get too far into it, but it was an 88 unit deal. 2016 we bought it. Up to that point, we had some storage units. We had, a couple 8 units and whatever. Mm-hmm. But when I got that, $4.5-5 million loan on that property, Johnson Bank was like, well, you need a professional property management company and here I have this value add strategy and mindset, but I thought I was gonna be able to execute it using the same property management company that was in there.
Sure.
It was already kind of looking rough. And the first 6 months, I didn't even ask the bank. I just ended up firing the third-party property management company because they were just running into the ground. Vacancy was up. They weren't getting the CapEx done. And I fired without asking the bank. And about 60 to 90 days later, it completely turned it around. And the bank was like, and then I told the bank after I showed them the numbers and the rent, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, you're good managing it, But
don't call my note yet, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, but I mean, I was to the point where I was like, oh my god, because I was like, you said they were gonna start asking for checks. I'm like, you got like this is insane, And I even was wondering, I'm like, man, is there theft going on here, And I don't want to accuse
I think it's just they're running a business, right?
Yeah.
And whatever they're going to do, they're adding on X amount per each employee that works on your property, taking down notes that you have a 2-minute phone call. It's a business, and it's a tough business, right? It's tough finding people.
It is. If you don't have the ownership, and that, I mean, third party is really a nickel and dime. You really got to have a lot of scale. I mean, and I don't know what a lot of scale means. It's got to be 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 units, whatever. I don't know.
I think if you find
thousands of units to really do it right.
And a lot of people out there can find good property management companies, but I feel to be a good one, it's almost like you have to be a boutique management company where you're not too big, where you're just a number as a client, but you're not too small, so you have some scale, 100%. Right? So trying to find a good management company, and they're out there. It's just they're hard to find because they probably don't take on too many new clients because they just want to stay just right of being able to manage your properties without gouging you and doing it the right way.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's interesting too. We've actually been able to make some key hires because we are owner operators, which is interesting for our management company. They've left, we just hired a VP of operations. He was overseeing about 25,000 units out in Washington, and he came on board with us just because of what we're building here, what we're doing. Yeah. We've kind of got a incentive plan now for our 2 vice presidents and our CEO that they get some equity in every single deal that we do. And so like they're seeing that stuff and they're like,
right?
Yeah. And so it's really given us, not dipping into that third party. And again, I don't know, maybe one day we will get into third party if there's a way we can buy a company that has 50,000 units under management, because it could also be an acquisition pipeline too or something, right? But yeah, so it's a interesting thing to be able to, but it's funny how there's a lot of us that got into doing what we're doing, never really had an intention to actually manage it.
Right.
In fact, it's the opposite most likely. But we end up where we're at just because of some unfortunate event or unfortunately a bad experience.
Well,
with
and
third party.
part of it too is so my business partner at the time, we're good at finding properties, right? We're not good at managing properties. So we had such a fixed mindset back then. When we took them back over, we tried to do it all. We didn't think we could afford someone else to help us out. So let's say we had 50 units, right? So we're doing the leasing, we're doing the advertising, we're doing the rent collection, we're doing the turnovers, the maintenance, and we were horrible at every part of it.
Yep.
But our fixed mindset was we can't hire someone at $10 an hour because we can't afford it. But yet it was probably costing us $1,000 an hour in losses of rent and bad tenants and not screening and breaking things more than we're fixing them.
Plus taking time away for you to go find the next deal.
But we were in this mindset of just we can't hire someone, and our goal was like, okay, once we get to 100 units, we'll hire someone. Yeah. So it took 10 years to get us to 100 units, but we should have hired someone almost day one.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of where I was at. When we hit about 400 units, I was, that's when I was like, okay, we got to bring on a COO, someone that can completely oversee it. But I'm looking at them like, I knew what I was getting paid from the management company at that point, and I'm like, that's going to have to go away right now because we didn't have the scale, right? There's a lot of my friends in the industry that thought I was crazy for hiring a COO. Like, you only have 400 units. Right. How are you doing this? I'm like, well, I'm going to just cut. Yeah, I'm like, because I know that, and then obviously, we're at about 2,000 units right now, and there's some restructuring going on right now within the company, all good stuff of, just some changes that we're making and additions that we've made and all that stuff. But none of that growth would have happened if it wasn't for getting the right people.
And everybody says, do what you're good at, right? So, so anybody out there is listening to this, right? Just again, another recommendation of just find what you're good at and then hire other good people around you to do the rest. Yeah, right. I mean, that's so key.
Did you who took the lead when you guys hired? Who took the lead on doing that? You or
kind of both of us.
Brian?
We do the thing with partnerships. Everybody talks about be careful of who you partner with. And for us, it's worked out very well because we're a very similar mindset of things are going to happen. And when they do, don't get too worried about it, right? And we kind of divide and conquer on tasks that need to be done. So to your question of, who took the lead on it, we kind of both did. It was a friend of a friend said, hey, this person's in real estate. All right, hey, you're hired, right? So again, with everything, we're not HR, we don't know how to hire people. We're just, hey, is this person good? And then, do you have any real, experience?
One interview and done.
Yeah, done.
That's what I used to do.
That was our first employee, one interview. And our second employee, she's no longer with us, but our second one, she is now our COO, basically.
That's awesome.
So she started off just out of high school and college. And
so she's been with you guys for 15 years?
Yeah, a little over 10 years. That's sweet. She's great. Kind of does everything for us now. So
that's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, we from a partnership standpoint, we've worked really well just because in real estate, a lot of things happen that you don't anticipate are going to happen. And if you're a person that's going to be really wound up tight and just focusing on every little detail, good luck, right? Sure. Because you could have a sprinkler break, or tenant leave you with just a complete mess, or just things are going to happen. You have to let things just roll off your back and not worry about it too much.
100%.
And you're going to lose money on some stuff too.
100%. So how many units did you guys get up to before you started building?
So our first development probably started in 2015. So we were maybe at maybe 150 units. So from like 2010 to 15, we had a lot of fun because that was basically recession. And we got into sheriff sales, foreclosures. It was so much fun. So it's like a rush every time you go. I mean, we could probably do a whole podcast on sheriff sales, but basically sheriff sales.
I'd love to hear that sometime. Actually,
you're
that'd be great.
Buying properties. You hear like buying properties on the sheriff's steps, right? The steps of the sheriff's. This is actually in the conference room of the sheriff's office. But every Tuesday they would have a certain number of properties that the bank is trying to take over. So before they can actually foreclose, a bank can foreclose on the property, they have to offer it to the public in a sheriff sale. So the bank usually gives a number of like, all right, so-and-so owes $200,000 on this property. If anyone wants to give me $200,000, property's there, right? They usually don't escalate. They just want to get off their books. So they have to go through the right process, hire an attorney, go through the sheriff sale process. And so as an investor, you can go every Tuesday here in Dane County at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning and go bid on properties. So there would be 12 to 15 people in the conference room. They'd be like, okay, 123 Main Street, opening bid, $100,000. And do I have any bidders? Yeah. You'd be like, yep, 100,000 and 1 penny, right? You're not going to go more.
Right.
And then from there, you could have 0 bidders or you could have multiple. And then it's just like, your juices get going and you're like bidding up. And what happens is you kind of have a number in mind of what I'll pay for this property. And it's an unknown because you can't get inside. Right. So you drive by. Is it occupied? Is it not? Is it, completely tore apart inside? Is it not? Is it great? So you have to make some assumptions. But basically you have to, let's say I'm going to pay $150,000 for this property, or I will in my mind, because there's going to be some things I want in there for improvements, unknowns, right? So you have to bring a cashier's check or cash up to 10% of what you're going to bid. So if I bid $150,000, I have to, if I win the bid, I have to give them, the sheriff, a check for $15,000.
Got it.
Right then and there, or other property is not mine.
Gotcha.
And then you have to pay the rest of it, the balance, within like 15 days.
Okay.
So there was a lot of just, hoping and praying that we're buying properties that don't look like they're destroyed inside.
So at that point, were you guys getting the money to take the sheriff sales from the cash flow of your other deals?
A little bit.
Did you guys have other gigs going on that was paying you to
the nice
up?
part of us, we both did day. So we had 2 jobs for like 20 years, from like 2000 to 2020. I was a commercial real estate broker, like I mentioned. He was a residential broker for a while, but then he opened up his own appraisal shop. So we were leaving off the stuff that we were doing for our day jobs, and then anything we were making on cash flow, we just kept in the property. So we never took out anything of the properties up until 5 years ago. We just reinvested everything. So yeah, for these sheriff sale properties, we would, grab whatever cash we could from any property and just, hey, how much do we have, right? How much can we bid on? And
That's awesome.
We wanted to bid on more. We just didn't have the ability.
For sure.
And again, fixed mindset back then, there would have been a lot of people that would have been able, willing to give us, loan us money. Yeah. But we didn't think big enough. For sure. Which was fine. We took off. We probably bought in like 5 years. We probably bought at sheriff sale 40 properties. Okay. Anywhere from a single family home to an 8-unit. So nothing bigger than an 8-unit, but and lots of stories on. Some of them were beautiful. We bought this house in Verona. Obviously, just drove by it. Next day, we get it. We break in because you don't have keys, right? So you find ways to break in or bring a locksmith. And it was, I think whoever was there before, they had cleaners come in. The house was beautiful. Wow. We're like, okay, we don't have to do anything. List it tomorrow, right? And make a bunch of money. So that person
had a loan on it potentially. Did have a loan on it. Yes. And they end up just leaving.
And they leave it. It blows my mind why people... I understand how some it happened, right? Yeah. Some people just got over, extended, couldn't do it. But other circumstances, like you could have just sold this house. I mean, house is worth $400,000. You had a loan of $200,000. Why? Right. So there had to be other circumstances in there you weren't aware of. But that was like the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, we bought this house in DeForest, and we go inside and we didn't know, obviously, because you don't get in until you break in.
It looked good from the outside?
Looked beautiful from the outside.
You're thinking you got another
7 years
room.
old, but there was a water leak in there. And there was so much mold in this house. It was insane. So huge mold remediation, had to gut it, do all this stuff. So, it goes from perfect house to not so perfect and a bunch in between. So
yeah. Were there properties that were bigger than 8 units on Sheriff's Office?
There was, man. We were a few months away just getting into this, but this 42 unit opened up and it was a beautiful building, only like 6-7 years old. And if we...
Wow.
I would say if we were 6 months more into it, we could have been able to kind of go after it a little bit. But it was a little bit early in our sheriff's sale.
You know what that one went for in the sheriff's sale?
It was like, $60,000 a unit or something.
That's crazy.
Really low.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you look back at some of those prices and like even though it was expensive then compared to the rents or whatever, it's like, man, if you find a way to buy these deals, and that's the same thing. 10, 15 years from now, we'll look back like, oh, should have just bought everything.
But
right? It can also get you in trouble sometimes.
Yeah, can't do it. Just got to do it. Don't overextend yourself. Obviously, don't get yourself in trouble. But go have some fun. But yeah, so there was a lot of that sheriff's sale foreclosure stuff between that 2010, 2015 period. Had a lot of fun, and then that dried up because the market got better. Not a lot of acquisition opportunities out there, so we decided to jump in the development game.
So before we get there, with the sheriff's sales, did you guys have like a game plan with each property you're going to buy, or was it like, hey, we know that these are going to be good deals, just buy whatever we could, and then we'll figure that kind of end game out later?
It was going into it more of let's find multifamily projects, right? Like duplex or 4 unit, whatever we can do from a rental standpoint. But then we'd be looking at properties. There's a lot, 90% of them are single family homes. These could be rentals too. So that's an awesome deal. That's an awesome deal. Let's just pick up those. And, the idea was at least hold them for a while. For the single family homes, it was, let's hold them for at least a year, clean them up, we'll rent them. And then if we want to sell them, great, and put them into something else. With the duplexes, 4 units, 8 units, mostly held them until recently, over the last 10 years, you sell one to put it into a bigger project.
Right. Makes sense.
So for each one, there was no individual game plan. It was just like, that's a good deal. Let's try to get it.
Got it. So in 2013 and 2015, those start to dry up.
They did.
The economy starts to turn around a little bit. Yep. So now you guys are like, okay, what's next?
Yes. And, the properties that we bought at were great deals, right? So they're kicking off some nice cash flow because, they were way under market in terms of what we bought them for. We cleaned them up, rented them up, got our cash out of it basically. And then just let's figure out what to do next. And there weren't many opportunities for acquisitions. So my partner had not started his own general contracting company, but he built his own house. He built a couple spec houses. One of the share sale properties we bought, it was 3 4 units with 1 vacant 4 unit lot. We're like, hey, should we try to build a 4 unit? Like, sure. So him and his dad GC'd it for us, right? Learned a lot of things along the way. They did great for their knowledge.
It's a great way to start.
Yeah, just
maximize what you already got.
Right. And then we found a little piece here in Stoughton, actually, one little single lot for a 7 unit. So we developed our own 7 unit.
Where's that one at?
Right up off of B, right by Lakeview Church.
Oh yeah.
It's blue and gray one, but it's like townhome style.
Yeah.
Learned a lot from that too.
So that was your second one you built?
Mm-hmm. We learned that building townhomes is expensive.
Yeah.
Basements, second floors, first floors, garages, all that kind of stuff. So, you learn along the way what makes sense, what doesn't.
And you've not sold any of the development properties?
The only thing that we sold one project, which is about 40 minutes from our office in McFarland. It was in Mount Horeb. We had built 220 units. Okay. And we sold that to a local developer manager just because it was our private managers and our maintenance guys are spoiled. they like to stay close to home and not like 45 minutes is a long way to drive by any means. But we were able to take that, put it into a different project, and
makes sense.
We like to keep things a little close to home.
So that transition from buying sheriffs, going to the sheriffs, the courthouse, the conference room, the courthouse, whatever, to developing your own properties. From when you guys decided to do that to actually like breaking ground on the first property, how long of a time span was in between there?
Wasn't too much. It was just, I think because that one share sale property had a vacant lot already approved and zoned for a 4-unit. Didn't have to find it, just let's find the plans.
So it was already approved. You just had to get plans rock and rolling, which you guys ended up
which
doing
we kind of had because they were on file because they were originally submitted. So we had an architect kind of, fix them up a little bit, but just bid it out.
You're talking like 3 months from decision to breaking ground?
Yeah, it was pretty quick. That one was pretty easy. A normal development deal, probably the fastest you can get from finding land to breaking ground that's not zoned, appropriately, or, they don't have it approved. I mean, 6 months is pretty quick.
Yeah.
9 months is probably a little bit in a smaller community that we like to do in Madison or larger cities. It could be
slow process.
18 months to try to break ground on something.
And they wonder why it costs so much rent and all that stuff.
Right.
Well. Got a lot of red
That's
tape,
why
man.
we like the small communities.
Time. Yeah, it's a little bit easier, less headache. Mm-hmm. So then you guys developed the 4-unit on the land you already had. How'd you find the land for the 7-unit?
I think my partner saw it. He was I mentioned he's an appraiser.
Yeah.
And as he was doing comps on something else, it popped up and said it was, listed for a 4 to 8 unit.
Yeah.
Let's take a look. So
did you have issues with lenders on your first couple developments? Was there obstacles you had to overcome there?
Lenders liked us because we had day jobs and had income coming in that way. So I think we were looked at a little bit less risk than having maybe investors that are just doing this for the income, doing this for the cash flow. Since we had those day jobs, the W-2 or commissions coming in and a track record for that, I think they gave us some slack, and it was smaller deals, right? It's a 4-unit, 7-unit. They weren't too worried about it, and just let us figure it out. And it was with, we had talked to this before we started, we do a lot of our work with local community banks. So it's kind of, common sense lending. So they looked at us and figured it wasn't a big risk. And
they know the market, and they're
know the market, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
so then when did you guys decide to go bigger? Because now, I know now you're developing stuff that is, what's your biggest development? There's one over here in Stoughton, the second
it's 80
phase.
unit. Yep. So an 80 unit, that's our biggest property we've ever built.
That's only 40 units in the first building?
So 80 in the first. Yeah, 80 in the first,
and
80
then
in
that
the
would be 80 in the second. So there's 160 total units there. That's a big project.
Yeah. To answer your question, when we were building that 7-unit, my former boss, who's not he's a hotel developer now in town, he said, Brett, he's like, developing a 7-unit is the same as developing a 70-unit. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what do you mean? Again, that fixed mindset I had, right? He's like, no, it's the same stuff. It's just dollars, right? I'm like, well, I don't have enough money to do a 70-unit. He's like, don't worry about the dollars. They'll come, they'll follow the projects. And it kind of opened my mind as to, well, really? It just doesn't have to be all me, or it doesn't have to be Brian. What do you mean? The money will follow the project. He's like, there's so many people that want to invest in real estate with people that do it well and that they trust. I'm like, okay. But he was right. Not just so from the dollar standpoint, just from it's the same. It's the same amount of time in zoning, meeting with village officials, going through the permitting process, the 7-unit, 70-unit, 700-unit, very similar timeframes. So that kind of, and the numbers work better for sure because you have the efficiencies there. Yeah. So after the 7-unit, we found a piece. It was an infill project in McFarland in our hometown, old health clinic, like 5,000 square foot health clinic that was vacant for a number of years. It was in a TIF district, which we could talk about, today or a different time too. TIF district is where a community wants to encourage development. Mm-hmm. So they offer an incentive. It's called Tax Incremental Financing. So they basically offer that as a help to incentivize development in areas that they feel are blighted or that they want development. So for this instance, it was a vacant 5,000 square foot old health clinic that they wanted something else to be there. And they wanted multifamily. So we bought that, tore it down, got about $500,000 from the village related in TIF financing. That can be used for equity. So let's say you need 20%, you're going to go buy a property, acquire a property, very similar for developing. You need 20% equity, right? Mm-hmm. 25% equity. Some of that can be TIF financing. So it lowers your amount of equity needed, which obviously increases your potential cash on cash return. We can also use our time as a developer fee, put that in as equity too. So one reason we really like developing is it's a smaller amount of cash needed for deals. Takes a lot longer.
Yeah, for sure.
Day one, right? Buy a property, you're cash flowing.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah.
But day one for buying land and, going through entitlements, and you're not getting cash flow for a couple of years.
Yeah. 2 or 3.
Yeah. So, but it's fun. We really enjoy it. But so that was our third one, I guess.
Where'd you guys learn how to underwrite, and how'd you go about that whole process?
Yeah,
it's probably evolved, right? Because
it's
the
evolved.
4 units different than 160 unit multiple phases.
It's really funny. It's yes and no. So you say it's evolved. We're still using the same spreadsheet we used probably 20 years ago.
Love it.
We've refined it a little bit, but it's there's nothing special to it, right? There's nothing that's, blowing anybody's mind. It's how much is this thing costing? What's my interest rate? What are my rents going to be? What are my expenses going to be? Okay. And we focus a lot on just, what's my cash on cash return be? Like, it's not what my internal rate of return is going to be in 5 years, 10 years. What's this thing going to do long term? It's like, okay, if we buy this and we build it, and we put in X amount of dollars, what's our return on those dollars now? Once it starts cash flowing. And that's really our focus. Everything else in our minds is gravy in terms of principal pay down, appreciation, maybe cash out refis, all sales, all that kind of stuff. But we're focused on kind of cash on cash return.
With obviously like a 4 unit or 7 unit, maybe it's a little bit easier to get a comp, or because you just don't have as much product to have to sell on the back end. But when you're doing like an 80 unit in a town of Stoughton, which before you guys built the 80 unit, when was the last time something new was built in Stoughton?
It's us. We built the 240 units 4 or 5 years ago.
That's right.
But before,
before that, when was the last time?
15, 20 years or something.
So before you guys built the 240 units on the south side of town, how did you actually know what the comps could be? And what did you guys use? Because for me, I'm straight up using comps. Obviously, the median incomes I use to and go by those two, but I'm going by comps. And something that's a new build, I'm going to stay a little bit below typically, depending on what the product is. And all that stuff, no matter how much we can refurbish a property, it's nothing like being completely brand new. But you don't really have. You're kind of
you're setting the market.
You are.
So it's a lot. It's gut. It's seeing how the community's doing. Right? Are they growing? Do they have good jobs? How's the schools doing? How's retail doing? Right. So you're kind of looking at the community first, and then you're kind of betting on the come. Right. You're like, okay, the highest rent for a 2-bedroom in Stoughton at the time, $1,000. Right. But we're going to be charging $1,400, right, for a 2-bedroom. Is this going to work? And you hope for the best, right? And you do all the research you can, but you can research things to death, as you know, right? And sometimes you just gotta go on your gut and hope things work out. And
so talking about like the retail and finding out about the school district, where do you guys go to track all that?
You can talk to Chamber of Commerce, village staff, school districts, just to see if enrollment's going up, if it's going down. Are they growing? Are they doing well? Do they have referendums been passed recently, right, to invest back into the schools? Yeah. Is retail vacant around town? Is there new housing starts going on? So just kind of all of it. And there's a lot of resources out there that you can find some pretty good information on. Yeah. And talking to brokers too. There's a lot of brokers that will lease retail space, and they have all kinds of demographics on the communities that you might have interest in.
Yeah, the primary thing I look at is, the median incomes and population growth. Right. That's really what I'm not into as much, and maybe I should be, but just transparently not as much looking at the retail and all that stuff. Obviously, when I'm going into a location, I'm driving the whole town, and obviously you see Stoughton's always jamming downtown. It's crazy. Great, they do such a good job. There's so many downtowns that have just got kind of crushed, over the last handful of years, but Stoughton's done a great job. So it's probably encouraging for you guys to see, obviously, with your developments.
Yeah, and kind of our niche is smaller communities like Stoughton. So,
if you're farther away, Stoughton is just outside of Madison. It's Madison, greater metro area is probably 600,000 they call it. Yeah. Right. And then Stoughton, it takes us from Stoughton about 15 to 20 minutes to drive to downtown to where the Capitol is. And Stoughton is about, 15,000
something right around there. Yeah.
Population of people. But still, even though you're in you call it I just wanted to give that context for people that are not from the area, because if people hear just small town, they might think in the complete middle of nowhere, which some people think Wisconsin in the complete middle of nowhere anyways. But, you know, we still have a big, you know, there's still a big population right around here.
Right. No, and I think some of these smaller communities kind of get missed by, I'd say, some of the larger developers. So in the Madison area, like you were talking about, there's a bunch of different suburbs, right? Some suburbs are more affluent than others, higher median incomes, bigger employment base, a lot more fun retail, restaurants.
I mean, like Sun Prairie is just like blown up.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, so that's where a lot of the larger developers go. The rents are a little bit higher.
Middleton,
right?
Sun
So if
Prairie.
you compare Stoughton compared to another suburb like Middleton, which is on the west side of Madison, maybe the 2-bedroom here is 1,500, 2-bedroom there's 18 to 2,000. So why would you come to Stoughton if you can build something in Middleton and get $300 to $500 more per unit? You just got to be creative. And that's something that we have tried to find a niche with, right? How do we build properties here? Because you're building the same property. You're building the same type of quality. You're putting the same heating systems in, right? The same roofs, all that kind of stuff. So the cost per square foot, very similar, but your rents are lower. So how do you make that work, right? Land is cheaper.
Yeah.
So that helps. Incentives from the communities are almost definitely needed, right? The communities want multifamily, but people aren't building them there because they can build them somewhere else and get higher rents. So you need buy-in from a lot of the partners in the community that you're going into.
And you also coming to Stone, you also on the back end, your rents might be lower, but you also probably not going to have as much competition though.
That's
either.
what we love, right?
Whereas like Middleton, Sun Prairie, you see a freaking building going up every block, and I'm like, oh my god! Like when you go to the Cabela's over there in Sun Prairie, it's just like blowing up right there. You know, it's multiple developers, and you got a lot of competition kind of at the same time, and so it's an interesting strategy you guys have. And
yeah, we're fine taking a little less return on a property like you said that has a lot less competition, and I feel like these smaller communities too. People stay longer, so my turnover is lower. Or rather, you know, some of these other users maybe are Epic, a lot of Epic Focus, which is a huge healthcare company here in Dane County, and 10,000 plus employees. Right, they have a lot of turnover. Right, so it means your apartments have a lot of turnover. Where in a community like Stoughton, there's a lot of people from just recent graduates to divorced parents to people that are just starting their careers. So. I feel like the turnover is a lot less in these smaller communities.
What's the biggest obstacle that you guys have ever had developing?
Probably neighbors not wanting change.
That's probably a consistent.
Oh yeah, issue. I mean it's not always bad. You'd be surprised, but. You get some where just the neighbors encourage other neighbors to show up as well. And you try to be upfront and you try to work with everybody. Like we've never been a developer that wants to, shove something down someone's throat, whether it's a neighborhood or village staff or the community, right? We want to be a win-win. We're in this all together.
Yeah.
But there's also some...
And it's like the communities you guys live in, and you're really close to. Like, I mean, you guys live in McFarland, which is only 5 minutes away, though.
Right,
we
have stuff in McFarland, and I don't know if that's good or bad, but sometimes it's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we developed, for an example, some duplexes in McFarland, the community that we live in, and we were told we were bringing prostitutes in, and drug dealers, and I'm like, well, these are duplexes. They're going to probably be the highest rent in all of McFarland.
2,200,
right?
2,000.
This is 7-8 years ago, and again, that was I would say the biggest obstacle is just people maybe having a different perspective of what's going to be after. It's just change. People don't always like change, especially when they don't see it or feel it. And once it's up, then it's like, oh, that's not bad. Right. So it's those beginning parts of just...
You even see that stuff on Facebook, too, where if someone talks about some vacant field that's now being developed, like, oh, there goes another vacant field, and it's going to put up some ugly apartment or something. It's like, come on, I know.
There's always
haters.
You can't
and they probably don't even really mean it. They're just,
it's just
firing something off.
Something to talk about.
Mood they're in.
See if they can get someone on a rise. But other than that, I mean, the nice thing is, if you have a reputation of doing what you say you're going to do, and then be a good steward of the community, it's nice because you actually have the support of people on village staff. They approach us now of opportunities, right?
Great,
so in Stoughton, we get approached with opportunities from the people who work for Stoughton, right? Like, hey, there's this new opportunity, over here. Maybe it's redevelopment. Would you guys have any interest, right? So it's our reputation is something that we really pride ourselves on.
Can neighbors shut down a project before it starts?
In Madison, I think they can.
Yeah.
Not so much they could probably in some of these smaller communities too, but it depends what the community wants, right? What the plan commission or
So the plan commission still has the ultimate.
Plan commission, village board.
They basically take in they get a lot of input from all different parties, and then they kind of make a decision.
Yeah, they don't, if there's super, kickback from the community as to we don't want this, then they should take some strong consideration. And as a developer, you should take some strong consideration of like, is this the right thing for the community, right? I don't want to go in being hated. Yeah. Right. Let's go.
You're trying to fill the building. On the back end.
Right. Yeah. That's not going to be good for anybody.
No, absolutely.
So, but yeah, it's getting everybody on board and then trying to find a win-win for everybody.
So you guys had a project that's been killed because of neighbors? Influence?
Yeah. We, and maybe not 100% killed, but it's just, do we want to fight this battle?
Well, right.
We recently gave up an option.
It was the deciding factor. It sounds like you guys sort of chose to walk away.
Yeah,
so it
4 months ago.
We
had a couple neighborhood meeting, the public meeting, and they didn't want what we were proposing, and we're not going to push it. So we gave up the option and moved on.
So now, like in a deal like that, how much money were you guys in?
Probably. So this was going to be a 90 unit project, an infill project, which is by other housing. The neighborhood didn't want it. We thought we had support from staff. Once they heard,
so it must have been like single-family homes, duplexes, and you guys were trying to come up with a bigger building. The neighborhood didn't want it.
Yeah, and we changed a few things. Split the building up a couple times. End of the day, we're just like, all right, we don't want to fight this battle. So we probably had. The thing is, when you're looking at these things, you need to get an engineer involved because they got to tell you what can be put on the site, right? Where's your stormwater pond going to be? Where are easements at? How many? So they initially, that's kind of like where we go first when we look at a piece of land. Go to the engineer. What can we do on this site, right? Where can our box be? And then from there, talk to an architect.
And how tall can the box go? So we know how many units we have. Because we have to figure out our revenue.
Can I go 2 stories, 4 stories, 3 stories? What can I do here? How much parking do I need? And then kind of back into what we can afford to pay for it once we know how many units we can put on it. Yeah. And then present it from there. And then, so we probably, on that project, maybe, and we lost some earnest money because we extended some things. So maybe 20,000. 20, okay. And about a year and a half of work, right?
That's the,
but it's a part of the game, part of the business, not all of them happen that way, but it's just a risk.
20 grand's not as bad as I was imagining on 90 unit property.
We keep it pretty simple in the beginning, right? So engineer costs, earnest money, some architectural stuff.
So at that point, when people killed it, did you guys have renderings and stuff too? And
very simple renderings.
Simple renderings of
it was just, and I don't 100% disagree with what they were saying. It's a big change. It was a big change from what they had, right? You go from trees and the open field and, places for them to just hang out and kids to play in, right? To, a developed apartment building, right? So I get it. So
it brings another 90 families and 180 people or whatever, right? 220 people. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I would have guessed more than 20 grand. I would have guessed like 50, 60 20. Something. So then when you guys wrap up a project, when do you start marketing the project to the community and try to sign leases? And what's that like from the marketing standpoint? Like, are you just trying to sell off of renderings? What's that whole process look like and the timing of it?
It's amazing now with virtual walkthroughs of what's... So from a marketing standpoint, we usually go out, if a building's being developed, 120 days typically will kick off putting it online.
20 days from getting your
moving in, yes. Okay. So like if we say, you can move in June 1st, back that up 120 days, we'll kick off, hit all the marketing. And from that, we'll take virtual tours from, similar properties. We'll have floor plans that we'll have on the website, virtual tours. They can see very similar. What's going to look like, the finishes, the sizes, the kitchens, appliances, all that kind of stuff. And then, they're signing leases without being able to walk through the building. And we give them an out if they want out. If they get in there and they don't like it after they walk it when it's finished, they can get out. But very rarely happens.
Where are you guys putting? How are you guys driving traffic? Where are you guys putting these? Is it just like apartments.com?
So
you guys have to do more
apartments.com, they control everything, don't they? And they sure charge you. Oh my goodness.
They do.
So for a new project, we will go most likely with apartments.com, do like a 6-month contract with them.
And you'll start that again 120 days out from when you can rent the first apartment.
Right. So we'll do a 6 to 12 month, depending on how big the building's going to be, how much we think, how long it will take to lease up the building. But I think you guys might use it too, or you did. AppFolio is kind of our cloud management software that we use to manage the properties. And you can also market from there. So you can click a button to say market, right? And it will shoot it off to a bunch of other, Zillows and these other, types of apartmentguide.coms. Yeah. So besides apartment.com, where you had to pay for, AppFolio will for free shoot it out to some other ones.
Nice.
So between those and signs still work, right? Yeah. And just see what you can do.
So you guys will let them opt out once they walk the unit.
Yeah. I mean, there's been cases where too, during COVID when we were developing properties, you didn't know if you're going to get electrical systems in, right? So you were hoping that people could move in, right? But also you didn't know if you were going to be able to power the building.
Yeah.
So are they going to have a fridge?
Right.
Are they going to be able to turn the lights on, right? Are they going to have anywhere to do their laundry? I don't know.
Right.
So we had to put stuff in there as well as to all right, we are able to, cancel your lease, which was kind of tough, right? As a tenant, you need to know if you're going to have a place to live. But for us, we also wanted to make sure we could provide a place to live. So COVID was a little tough couple years to try to figure out on development standpoint of making sure people could have a place to live that they wanted to.
So you guys still, I know you said your partner obviously GC'd those first. Are you guys still your own GC?
We do both. So we hired actually my brother-in-law about 7-8 years ago. He was a teacher for 17 years, but also had a construction background. Worked summers, had his own carpentry business. Awesome guy. I'm like, man, if we could ever afford him, that'd be great. And he ended up, loved teaching kids, but just wanted to change. And we brought him on board and started him off doing very small projects, maybe building a duplex, GCing a duplex. I mean, he's a very detailed guy, so he got it pretty quick. Right now, he's building 50 units for us in Oregon, another community not too far from here. So he's not to the level of underground parking and elevators, but what he's doing right now, he's doing 212 units that are, 2 stories, slab on grade, garages underneath. He's GC'd all of our self-storage facilities. We've built 3 of those from start to scratch. Wouldn't think there'd be too much for just, some buildings going up that are aluminum, but you still got to do retention ponds, underground plumbing, electrical, concrete, all that kind of stuff for self-storage. So he's come a long way. So to answer your question, we have an internal GC to keep our costs down, which I had mentioned earlier about developing. You can put your developer fee in it for equity. You can also put your GC fee, general contractor fee, in as equity. Which is
like another 5 or 10% of the project, right?
Yeah. So that helps, right? So that's one way to keep our, cash need down, is put our developer fee and GC fee in it with our internal GC on staff. I mean, we pay him a salary, right? But he lowers our overall cost of building so he does our small and medium size.
Again, probably lowers it by 5 to 15%.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is then there's no cash that moves anywhere at that point. You're just basically able to show that as part of your equity, basically.
As equity, yeah. So that's been great. And as he continues to grow, he'll continue to do bigger buildings. But we also have done, we have a general contractor.
What's the difference? What step would he need to take to be able to do the underground parking and whatnot? What's the differentiator?
My business partner, Brian, and I, we have 100% confidence in him, right? Yeah. He doesn't know if he's ready, but he's always ready. He's such a smart guy. Eventually he'll do it. We'll probably bring on a consultant, whether it's our existing GC right now, who's getting older, who's going to be retiring soon, to help him out during maybe that phase. But once he does it once or twice, it's just, he doesn't know what he doesn't know, right? And he's a very careful guy and just doesn't want to make mistakes.
Makes sense.
So, so he does all of our small to medium projects, and then we have a one guy who does our larger buildings. That he's the only one we've worked with, only GC we worked with. He's a one man show, and and he's probably 10 to 15% lower than the larger GCs out there, just because he has no overhead. He doesn't have an office. He works out of his house.
Right.
He's been doing this for a long time, and he's done all of our projects. And it's another reason we're able to build in these smaller communities. Keeps our per square foot cost down.
Got it. What is also the difference in the financing between a construction loan that you guys get and what are some of those intricacies and the differences versus a stabilized property that's an acquisition?
Yeah, good question. So the way banks will look at it, they do it two ways. One, they're going to look at it, what's it going to be stabilized, right? So they'll get an appraiser, just like you would for an existing property. The appraiser will...
So they're also then approving and validating your rents.
Yeah, absolutely,
which the appraiser is as well.
So, we'll send them our pro forma worksheets of what we think rents are going to be, what the construction costs are going to be.
Has there been times with the appraiser and you guys or the bank and you guys have disagreed?
Oh, yeah. And it's never in our favor.
Right. 100%.
Right. It's always, the appraisal unfortunately coming in lower because we are, like we said earlier, going into communities that don't have a lot of comparables. So we're trying to prove rents out into a market that doesn't have rents proven. But we're still putting an expensive project there. So there's unfortunately, we've had to bring more money to the table in a couple projects in the past, just because the appraiser and us don't agree.
Right.
So
okay, didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. It's but the bank will get an appraisal based on what's a finished project going to look like. The appraiser will say, okay, yeah, their construction costs look in line with the market. Their rents are in line with the market, hopefully, right? And they'll bring it in a value where you're hoping your total cost is, right? Your land, your soft costs, your hard costs, all that is a total cost. You just hope your appraiser brings it in where that is. And then the bank will look at it as just like a normal deal. Like, is this going to hit a debt coverage ratio like an existing project once it's stabilized? So they'll give you usually 18 months to 24 months to get it built and stabilized. And then from there, they'll want to see your debt coverage ratio, the project stabilized, which means, 95% occupied.
So they'll basically say, okay, the project is a $10 million project. We're going to give you guys basically $8 million to put towards this thing. Right. Now, once that's kind of approved and you guys break ground, how often are you guys making draws on that?
Yeah. So
on that money?
It'll be once a month. And a draw is, for anyone that doesn't know, excuse me, the general contractor works with us subcontractors, what's a heating, electrical, concrete guy, right? They'll when work is done, they'll put their draw in, which is the requesting money from the bank. So each month, each subcontractor who did work that month will put the request in for being reimbursed for their time and materials. The bank will send out an inspector to make sure that work was done, and then it will be paid through the title company. It's kind of the process. Everybody's trying to make sure they're checking the boxes.
And then in all your deals, you're paying interest only on the amounts that you draw.
Yes.
So then each month that goes by, you guys, so some people are gonna be like, well, where's that money coming from?
Right. And that's part of your soft costs. So when you're putting together here's how much
so you're getting a loan to pay.
Getting a loan to pay the loan, right? Yeah. So, that's because you don't want to carry it. These things are going to take a year to build, the bigger ones, right? So as your loan amount gets higher, your interest on that loan on the monthly basis can be tough. So we learned that really early. In the first couple of deals, we didn't know about that little idea.
No, so you make the first couple of draws, like,
oh wait,
we don't have a rent.
I gotta pay interest on this loan that I don't have any cash flow, any rents coming in for.
Right.
So a little, which most people know, we just didn't, as a soft cost, put in an estimated amount of what you think your interest expense will be during construction, as well as lease up, because we tried to get 24 months of interest only on all of our projects to get us built, stabilized, build up your accounts, right, with some rents and not having to draw off paying your loan yet.
So then 24 months interest only, you break ground.
Yeah.
A month after that, the first bill's coming. You plan to be able to start marketing that, 6 months after? And the first unit will be ready like 9 months, 10 months after you break
depending on
ground?
it depends on the size of the project. The 12 units that we're building right now, they only take 6 months to build, right? The 80 unit that we're building right now takes 12 to 14 months to build. So it's just, it's timing, how long something needs to be built, backing in when you want to market it, and then figuring it out
So the 80 unit, 12 to 14 months, and then lease up time of stabilization period of 6 to 9 months?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. These markets, things get leased up fast, right? So this last 80 unit that we opened up a year ago, we opened it up in October, which is not a great time to open up a project in Wisconsin because it's cold, right? Who wants to move in December? We were fully leased by like March 1st.
That's crazy.
Right? So it's
Where are the people coming from?
all over. Yeah. So for people who don't know Dane County, people continue to move here because people have found out that it's an awesome place to live. Good jobs, right? We have a lot of good jobs. We have the state, we have the university, we have big technology companies, healthcare companies. So the jobs are here. And with COVID, people are like, oh, I don't have to live maybe on the East Coast or West Coast. So I feel the proof is out there, right? People are moving to smaller communities that maybe have less cost of living, but also that have an awesome, community and life around it, right? Obviously, I'm biased. I live here. You live here.
Yeah.
Madison's awesome.
It's a secret.
Got the lakes. You got parks. You got
as much as the
everything you
population
need.
is growing in this area, it's still a secret.
Right.
Yeah.
So people are coming from out of the county, out of the state, and they're projecting, this to happen over the next 10 plus years. I don't know how many people they're saying, but it's a lot into Dane County. So
Are you pulling other people from other Dane County markets that are more expensive, where they like, oh, I can get a new product and save $300 a month? You're not seeing as much of that?
We have seen a little bit of that. And I think if we didn't have so many people moving to the area, you'd probably see more. But now people are just looking for options.
Yeah.
So we haven't had a lot of that. I mean, some people come to these communities for the value.
Yeah.
Just because they are.
Yeah.
Less. Other people want to be closer to their job.
I always think it's funny too, like people that buy like a C-class type building, like, oh, I'm not going to have a problem during a recession or tougher times. It's like, well, what you don't realize is if they need to, they could go get a roommate and go to a new build and then get a 2-bedroom. Have you guys seen any of that?
That jump to class, where
they jump to class and able to afford it because now there's 2 incomes. Have you guys seen like people that are not necessarily a married couple or, a couple, but they're
definitely a lot of roommates out there. Yep. In the 2 bedrooms for sure.
That were probably at a C level type building prior.
They can bump up and just, hey, let's go be in a nicer building and pay a little.
I always
correct
people when they think about that, because I'm like, just because it doesn't mean like you won't. I mean, everyone's gonna feel it somehow, some way, and you'll still feel it somehow, some way, because you will have some people that will be like, hey, let's room up and just go get a, and then they're each saving a couple $100 a month that way.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then, is in the loan, is it already built in what that loan looks like once you guys are stabilized, or
it depends. You can, we've done it where you just do a straight 2-year construction loan, interest only, and hope you're stabilized.
And then a balloon payment?
And then from there, you go get permanent financing.
Do you have a balloon payment on those?
Yep. And that's
ballsy.
The nice part is, it is.
I'd want like some at least variable rates sitting there after.
It is.
Whereas there's no prepayment. But
so yes, it's risky, but you also have the flexibility to go with any other lender then too at that point, right?
What if you just went variable right after that though?
We could.
Could you build in a variable to at least then have no prepayment? And at least have debt on the building?
Yep. And we haven't, I would say, most of them up until this point when interest rates were so high, we always locked in we always did a construction loan and a permanent loan together. So even day one we closed on the loan, we already have our permanent loan in place. But since interest rates are so high right now, and they have been for the last year plus,
coming down over the next 6.
I don't want to lock in for 5 years or 7 years at a higher rate. So it's like we'll take the risk on a shorter term and then just hope for better financing.
Whenever I can, so like we do a lot with the regionals, our regional local lenders here, we'll do a lot of 5-year loans, but then I'm always trying to get in like a period after that of another 3 to 5 years of where it just goes to variable. Yeah. So that I'm guaranteed to at least have debt on the property.
Very
with
smart.
No balloon payment until, and there's no prepayment penalty in that entire 3 to 5 years. Cause I'm always just looking at like the stories I have heard and like my own like bumps in the road of real estate have come because of a something wrong with the timeline. It's like the bigger runway you give yourself as far as time, the more likely you are to have success in real estate.
Take one more risk out of there, right?
Right. Yep. Right. Because the more time you have, I mean, this building's going to be worth more. I mean, most likely this building's going to be worth more 15 years from now, 20 years from now. Right. So it's that time. How can you so that's what I always, and I don't always get it, but like a lot of what we locked up this year, it's 5-year with a regional local lender and a couple different local lenders, but it's come with the 3 to 5 year variable after that. So it's not at least a hard balloon payment right after. So it just gives me a little bit
the more flexibility you have, the better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So you guys are kind of doing both. But right now you've been playing where, okay, let's just get the construction loan. We'll figure out the other piece 24 months in once we're stabilized, because we think you're basically betting and saying, okay, rates are going to be at where they're at right now, or they'll come into our favor.
Correct.
You don't think they're going to go up.
No.
Whereas when you're building a few years back, you're like, okay, rates are at 3-4%.
Lock in as long as you can go.
Let's lock it in.
Yeah. Just do whatever you can to lock these things in.
And is that what we were talking about prior to the show, prior to coming on here, where you said we just locked up a lot of things for 10 years?
Yeah, back in 2020, 2021, all of our stabilized larger assets we locked up for 10 years.
So you had the 2-year construction loan and then another 8 years after that,
some
or
of
2
those,
years?
Some of those are already built and stabilized and done.
Okay.
So we're able let's just lock these in for 10 years. Other ones that we had in construction at the time were probably 5 to 7 year loans.
Okay. So 2 year, including the construction period, 2 years on another.
And then maybe 5 years permanent.
Got it. So okay. That's interesting. Joel, you have anything you want to pipe in with?
As far as the amenities go, how critical has that been? Right now, our trends that we see up in Madison, your dog wash, your car wash.
Sure.
You've seen the fitness facilities that are ridiculous. The
Amenity War is going on, right?
It really is, man. It really is. In the more rural community areas, do you see kind of that same trend?
We don't.
Or not really?
No, we don't. We have properties that have 0 amenities next to properties that have not a lot, right? Like a fitness room, a community room, maybe an outdoor fire pit, and they lease the same, literally the same rents. I mean, we feel we can get more value or should get more value in rents out of the ones with amenities, but I think it's probably just due to a lack of supply in some of these communities where it doesn't really matter. So whereas in, you alluded to some of the west side of Madison where there's a lot of construction going on, a lot of different developers, some in town, some out of town, and they do have these theater rooms, right? Beautiful, beautiful amenities, right? That I would love, right? Pools, all this kind of stuff, fun stuff. But we have found that we don't need them yet. We don't need them right now with existing properties, and we're not really planning any extravagant ones for any new stuff.
Have you those properties that are near each other? You guys tried pushing the envelope with the ones that have, and then it just got pushed back where people were like,
They're just people didn't really care. It was interesting. We thought again, most of our buildings have some amenities in them, but they're not that much. Again, the standard fitness room, community
clubhouse
room,
with a pool table and a TV or something,
and basic stuff, right? And people like it. It's great, but they're also looking at what's available. And if there's nothing available, they'll take what they can get. And if it's a newer product, they're super happy with that. So thankfully, we haven't had to do any of the amenity wars in our communities, but I've seen them out there. Yeah, it's kind of fun to watch, see what they're doing.
Some of the ones that we're finishing building now are theater room, saunas, jacuzzis.
I love that
ones that you guys are building.
Yeah. It's obscure sometimes.
I have a friend who did a climbing wall on his. It's great.
In Madison here?
Yeah.
It is crazy.
That is crazy.
Some of them, and like that's the same thing too. Like you go to bigger cities and you see some of those amenities, which bigger cities, like Chicago, that makes a lot of sense to me because it's like you've got this concrete jungle, and it's sweet if you can have some of that stuff just like right there. That's at your place, but yeah, I don't know. I'm the same way where I'm like I'd rather so like us buying a C or a B class building and trying to improve it. I'm always looking like, can we put another unit in somewhere? We'll add a dog park if we can add a dog park, or add some some premium parking spaces if we can get it closer to some type of apartment or something. But like anything that is indoors, I'm like, can we convert? Can we get another 2 unit? Like if we bought a 246 unit, I'm like, hey, how can we get 3 more units out of this space here and take
numbers work? I think even the bigger thing that residents want is just being treated good.
For sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's whether you have a pool there or not a pool. If you have a property management team, a maintenance team that's not treating you with respect, why would you stay? Right.
Yeah,
So,
sure.
I mean, our team, we just pride ourselves on just doing what we can. I mean, they're part of our portfolio, right? They're residents. This is their home. So respond, get the stuff fixed, have the common areas looking good, and people will stay. And you don't really need all the stuff because a lot of property management companies, like we were talking about earlier, you're just a number, right? And the properties, they try to keep them up, but then the garbage is left out here and there, or the hallways are all scuffed up, and people notice that. And then if property's not being treated well, why would they treat it well?
Right. Do you guys try to get work orders done in a certain time period, or what do you guys try to do there?
Yeah, we don't have like all these good metrics, that some of these other groups have. It's more, we have a guy that heads up maintenance, 3-4 maintenance, awesome people, property managers that are all heavily involved in it from a communication standpoint. And then it just says, how fast can we do it? I mean, these work order systems have got so detailed and they're great compared to what before. It's like before they would just call, you write down on some notes. Now it's all tracked. They can see when they're entering their unit, what was done. If it wasn't fixed, ordered a part, it will come back. So I think if it's not so much how fast it is, it's just the communication as to when it's getting done, how it's getting done, if there's delays,
you don't leave
why.
them hanging.
Yeah, that's all they want. They don't need it to be done in 24 hours. They just want you to communicate.
Yeah, versus getting lost. Versus even if you guys have it internally, but you didn't communicate that, them thinking and just feeling that they might be lost in the abyss drives them nuts.
Yeah.
And raises their level of anxiety 10x.
For sure.
Yeah. It would me too. That's what I always tell I'm like, man, if that was me, I'd be pissed.
Yeah.
If that happened to me, I'd be upset.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they pay for, I mean, you're basically almost paying a mortgage.
And you're more, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
It's just
you pay for that convenience. You expect things to get done if something goes.
And sometimes too much, right? I mean, there's some entitlement out there, unfortunately, where whether or not the tenants just don't know what to do. Like, I mean, you get these work orders. My thermostat's beeping. Change the battery, right? Yeah. Or my light's out. Change the bulb, right? But unfortunately, some of the people out there just have never done it, right? So my daughter works with us. She's a senior. She's part of a youth apprentices program through the high school, which is great because she gets to, during school hours, she gets a credit. She finds a place that she wants to work that maybe she's interested in. So she's working with us, but she's putting together TikToks of how-to TikToks, Sweet. Right? And our head of maintenance and her have worked together on how to unclog a garbage disposal.
Oh, nice.
So she's learning, right? And she's teaching now. They just send these links to tenants like, hey, the batteries it's beeping at me, right? This is beeping at me.
That out.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, we'll start using your videos.
Go ahead, man. It's been fun for my daughter. She's learned a lot. It's great for our tenants because the visual part of it helps. Right? Like, hey, here's how you do this. Or it's a great basic idea. Stuff.
Yeah.
But then the tenants appreciate that because they're learning something, right? We don't have to take a maintenance person's time and go change the batteries out of a thermostat. And hopefully it's a win-win.
Mm-hmm. Joel kind of had a good segue without even really talking about it, but like talking about where, they're almost paying like a small mortgage.
Yeah.
Where do you think housing's, based on your opinion and just the success you guys have had and what you guys do, where do you think housing's headed the next 5 to 10 years?
Locally or nationally or all together?
Let's start locally.
Yeah,
here in the Midwest in Dane County.
It's so expensive to build, right? So it's there's so many people out there, our tenants, your tenants, that want to have a home, but you feel bad, right? And we have a couple people on our team that are brokers too. So we offer a service. If you want to get out of your lease, work with our broker. They'll go find you a house, right? So it helps manage that system of if people who want to find a house, go find it. But also you learn that a lot of these people unfortunately can't afford one, right? Or if they can afford one, they get bid out of one. Or the supply is so low, as we've all heard. And it's low because it's expensive to build, right? So you don't have all these new homes going up. You do have a lot of new homes going up, but start at $500,000. So where's that lost middle? right? Where are the homes for $250,000 to $350,000 that people can take that step out of apartment living and into their first home? It's just super difficult. So I don't know where it gets solved. I mean, it's got to be a team effort with the community, with the government putting some incentives in there for I mean, if you're a developer of homes or condos, it doesn't make sense you can't build something for $250,000, even if it's a condo. So how do you do that without getting incentives from the community, getting incentives from the government to try to help those people take that next step?
With Trump being back in office, I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of, I mean, him being the real estate guy. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of incentives. I mean, like how he brought back, 100% depreciation. Obviously, that's starting to phase out. I wouldn't be shocked if he brings that back and it goes back. I don't know if you guys accelerate because
you're
developing, like so you accelerate it all.
Best things.
I mean, I'm sure they're going to bring. I would think he'd probably bring that back, and even probably go back in time to recapture the last few years where it started to sunset a little bit. I mean, that's a big incentive.
It's going to be great for us, right? But it's how do you then? What incentives can you do then to help?
But then going forward, I mean, that's the interesting thing too. Does that help any more development going forward? I mean, it's probably not enough. Right. That one thing alone is not enough. No. But I mean, it is nuts on how many people are looking to make an investment because they're looking for the depreciation. We have so many investors that are like, hey, I'm fine. Even if you can find a deal, I'll just do a deal with you, even if it's going to only pay me 4%, 6%, 7% a year, if I can get the depreciation for this year.
For sure. Yeah.
Because they calculate that into their overall return then. And so it's an interesting, and with that sunsetting, I mean, there's less, and anytime there's less dollars coming towards an asset class, there's going to be potentially less of it. But yeah, the other thing too I find really funny is there's always the people, and you've been around long enough to see this too, because I've seen it come all full circle a couple times now. But like when rates are high, people are thinking, when rates come down, I'll be able to buy a house.
Right.
I'm like, but the price is going to go back up then at that point. Because it's not how our world works. It's not based on a total price of a building or a house. It's based on what you can afford each month and what that mortgage payment can be.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I don't know. I find it. I mean, the other thing that's going to be interesting is over the next 10 years, if like our birth rates kind of keep slowing down a little bit, what implication is that going to have too that maybe we're not seeing right now either?
Yeah, I think
how much does that eat into it?
Right, and I think long term, if you're an apartment owner investor, it's going to be good, right? It's going to be good for a long time, right? It's just if you're a first time home buyer, I feel for you. Just don't give up hope. Keep searching. I know a lot of residential brokers. They said that the market is equalizing a little bit, more than it has been in terms of the supply has picked up a little bit. Not as many competing offers, right? The interest rates are still high. So, I mean, there's opportunities out there, but there still needs to be a lot more supply.
But like the other thing is when rates come down, there's still not going to be as much supply as what was here, I don't think, because you have so many people also locked into 3%, 3.5%. I can't remember the stat, but it's like 75% of the loans out there right now are locked at 3%. So, okay, if rates go back down that high, prices are going to be so. But if rates only come down to 5 or 4.75, I still don't know that drives necessarily that much more supply to the market, and I still think the prices. I don't know. It's an interesting thing. I don't think anyone really knows. Depending who you listen to, there's numbers that, hey, we're 2.5 million homes short in the United States. When they say homes, they mean housing units. So it could be apartments and single family homes or whatever, just anywhere that people can live, all the way up to 5 to 6 million. There's some people, and it's like, well, what's the true number?
There's a lot.
And then again,
there's a big need.
Like when I asked you, where you think the market's going to go, you're like, well, locally or nationally. Then you have pockets of areas that are going to struggle because people are just leaving, and there's no jobs coming back, and
so you see also the. Just nationally, there's been multiple reports out there that, 2024 has been one of the highest years of completions for new construction.
Which is now starting to already hit the top of the bell.
2024 is also one of the record lows of new starts. So you have a big supply that's coming in 2024. So you have
where we're going to be at in
vacancy has ticked up a little bit because so many apartments have come online. Those will fill up.
Yep.
And then next year in 2026, when projects that would be ongoing right now are not, then it's going to just be a tighter squeeze. So
and I think inflation and the value of these assets is going to skyrocket because of that.
Continue to go up.
That's where I'm like, I want to keep buying, and because of that. But that's kind of it's interesting once you've kind of been around. And again, me buying my first building in 2012 or 2013, I've kind of seen just different cycles and like the ebbs and flows of it. And that's why I'm always like, man, I'm never going to just try to time the market. I just want to be consistently trying to grow and acquire, because if you try to just time it, like you're not ever going to, and if you just bank on that timing, but if you can just find a good deal that works in whatever environment or the current environment you're in, you're going to be good in the long term.
For sure. It's a long game. Real estate, it's a long game.
Yeah.
I mean, people make a lot of money fast, but you can't really time it out like you said.
What do you think your guys' big now being experienced developing projects and being successful? What do you think your guys' biggest risks are as a company?
We were talking about this the other day. Why do a deal if it doesn't make sense? I mean, so as we're right now, we have an amazing team. So we self-manage all of our properties. So we have awesome property managers, awesome maintenance staff. So they handle the day-to-day stuff. They don't need us, which we feel a little left out. We come back after a week of being gone. Like, hey guys, what happened? They're like, we're good.
Vacation.
Like, you don't need our help? You don't need anything? Nope, we got it. Oh, that's right, because we're not good managers. But from a property standpoint,
they want you out of it. They don't want you to touch it.
So now, what we're doing is trying to find deals, and that's what's exciting for us, right? New opportunities, but. We probably killed 3 or 4 deals this year from a development standpoint just because the numbers didn't work. So it's a lot of work and effort and money to put into these deals, but if they don't make any sense, why do them?
Do you think you killed those 3 deals because of where you're at now, and you think your former self would have done those deals, and things have just changed because of where you're at, your experience?
Good question. We might have done one of them.
Like 6 years ago or 7 years ago, maybe you would have done one of them. Just because we want
to push it through. Now we're like, we don't need to. The risk isn't. Right. We don't need to just go do a project that doesn't make any sense financially. Right now. And right now it's hard to make them work just because the construction costs and the interest rates and all the unknowns. I mean, rental rates have gone up very nicely, but how much more can they go up? I always say that. I've been saying that for 10 years. Right. But how can someone afford? I mean, you look in Madison. I'm sure your listeners look in other markets. Right. Like, oh my gosh, downtown. There's a 1-bedroom for $4,000 a month. I'm like, okay. That's crazy. It's crazy. But again, I've been telling myself this for 10 plus years, right? So people are going to pay it, they're going to pay it, and that's what they want. So rents have continued to go up, but how much more are they going to go up to be able to offset the higher costs and higher interest rates that we're in right now? Right.
And that, we talked about with some of the bigger cities and some of these areas with the red tape.
Well, the regulations in terms of what you need to do on each project. And you're seeing it even in these smaller communities too. They're making sure that their developers are putting up properties that, they say they're going to do. And they get engineers once you get third party inspections, engineers, architects looking at stuff, it just drives up costs, which I get. It makes sense.
Because they're worried about their developers cutting corners.
Maybe not doing, doing what they're saying they're doing underground, right? If they're connecting to public pipes, but they're not doing it with the right, things that they're saying they're going to do. They're doing a lot more inspections, which is good, but just more costly.
And you guys have seen that too? Interesting. Yep. So there's probably people out there that must have tried to shortcut.
Yes, because always
probably happen enough if even locally here.
You wonder why leases are 50 pages long, right? It's because every one of those paragraphs is someone getting screwed over.
It sucks, dude. It's like it's so funny when you come to a professional property management company and people see the length of the lease. They're like, oh my god! Like my parents they're remodeling their house and they rented one of our duplexes for a couple months, and I'm like, look. You guys are just getting on a regular, because we're going through that building's now sold. And I'm like, you guys are going to be on a regular lease because I'm going through the sale. I don't want to hiccup. I don't want questions asked. Just do a regular lease. They get the lease. They're like, how is this thing 40? It was like 48 pages or whatever. Yeah. Like, why is this 48 pages long? I'm like, talk to CJ. Yeah. But it's because that's the rules, regulations, fair housing. I mean, it's all the rules.
Right.
And if you have to evict somebody, but you don't have the right thing in the lease, you have to have your lease correct, or you're not going to be awarded damages. Yeah, and not going to get them evicted, and it's just going to take longer. And So a lot of people don't realize that it's because of a lot of these rules that the government's kind of put in place that, you know, or a landlord got screwed over or whatever, that's where it kind of stems from.
You never know what the tenants are going to do. We had an issue Christmas of 2022. Horrible day for us at Lakestone. We had it was very cold that day. I was out of town.
Was this like one of the winter vortexes or whatever?
It was a winter vortex from craziness land. So it was like 50-mile-an-hour winds plus, you know, 5 degree days, or, you know, whatever it was. Creating
the -40, -50 degree wind chill.
We had, so again, it was Christmas. We were out of town with the family. My business partner, his family was out of town. We get a call, 5 o'clock, Christmas Day. Oh, we had a pipe burst at the 7 unit here in Stoughton. Pipe burst. You know, the wind can find a tiny little crack, right?
Yeah.
And you have sprinklers, boom, hit that. They got that under control. We're like, all right, okay, good job, team. Appreciate you.
You have sprinklers
Merry
in all
Christmas.
your buildings. We don't have sprinklers in all of our buildings, so there's some of our older. So you have all that right now, and you got to deal with.
We had then an hour later they call us one burst in a 40 unit.
Yeah.
An hour later, one burst in another 40 unit. We had 5 breaks on Christmas Day.
That's a nightmare.
One of them was because a tenant left for Christmas, left his patio door open and turned off his heat. So he's on the second floor, pipes underneath his kitchen faucet burst, flooded his unit, flooded the unit below him. I mean, it's just...
Was he able to cover that through insurance or?
He didn't have insurance, of course. Then, of course, we implemented, you know, our leases said they had to have it, but our systems, we never really implemented it. But obviously, starting that 2023, we made sure all of our tenants have insurance now.
Yep, 100%. We've been.
So you learn a lot, right? But it's like, you know, property management and owning properties is awesome, but it also comes with risks and issues. We had a burst pipe the other day.
And again, it was just a stupid, like you just said, you know, door got left open. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
You know, why?
Right.
And we, it's actually, you know, we've gone to, you know, like I think 2 years ago we implemented where it's a requirement, and we have the systems in place to make sure where if they lapse on theirs, then it actually comes to our insurance, but we charge them. Yeah, and we actually make a significant amount of money if they let it lapse on the kind of the, I don't know how it works, but whatever. Yeah. But we obviously hope we don't have to.
We just want them to have insurance.
We just want them to have it.
Right.
Yeah, we just want them to have it. Just ideally, they just do it because it's a lot cheaper with how our system's set up or whatever for them. But it's paid off because I mean, we had, you know, there's another tenant fell asleep at one of our properties while something was, I think he probably worked second or third shift, whatever, fell asleep while something was on the burner. I don't know. I went and looked at this unit. We got so lucky that the whole building didn't go up. 96 units, all one building.
No sprinkler system?
No sprinkler system. Yeah, I don't know how, when I looked at the unit, I heard it was a fire and my team was like, oh, it's just contained in one unit. So like in my mind, like I've seen what some of those look like where it's just like, okay, you see some burn marks on the wall. No, like the thing was, I don't know how it didn't go to the second floor because the ceiling was like scorched, gone, no drywall, nothing left on the ceiling. And we got lucky, man. I told my team, I'm gonna believe it when I see it, but supposedly the tenant's insurance is going to pay 100% of it.
That's
supposedly.
Great. That's what you hope for, right?
I'm going to believe it when I see it. I mean, I hear things, and I've been around the real estate game long enough. Like I hear things. Let me see it. Let me see that money come in. But
that's a whole nother, conversation for probably a different time. But insurance is crazy right now. We got dropped by one insurance company off a property that we own. It's an acquisition that we made 3 years ago.
70s product.
It's 80. So it's 25 years. So not bad, right?
Yeah, no.
Late 90s.
Wow. No, not bad at all.
3 stories, underground parking, nice buildings here in Madison. We had a pipe break.
I was going to say, it was probably from that 2022 pipe break.
It was the one that left his patio door open. Yeah. But then we also had another break, non-related, like 4 months later. Plumber was doing some work, didn't realize that, broke a pipe in there, left, flooded out a couple units. So we had 2 claims within 1 year, and they dropped us when our policy lapsed or was over, and then we couldn't find new insurance.
It probably doubled.
It was crazy. We had to go to, I don't even know, it's third tier market or something. I mean, you paid double, and so insurance is a crazy business right now.
We were on like
nobody
legacy.
wants to insure 3-story wood framed buildings.
Oh, and especially like if you get into the 70s and some of the 80s, they're just like trying to get out of that game. And at some point, the prices are gonna get to where it gets competitive again. I think because it's gonna bring more people in, hopefully. But I don't know. I mean, we've been stuck with our So over the last like 3 or 4 years, when all this stuff kind of started happening, I told our team like, look, before any insurance is taken, and we do a claim, you come to me first. We're going to talk about it.
Yes.
Because if we can just pay for it,
100%.
even if it's 50 grand, 100 grand, 300 grand, I'm like, if there's a property where we can pay for it, we'll just pay for it to not ruin the risk of getting dropped,
right?
Or just have a huge increase. And because of that, we've actually been able to see some pretty stable pricing until we got to this year. Now we're starting to see some of these increases. All of our properties were like 23 to 26% increases this year, which our renewal just occurred in October. 2 properties, which they're both, they're all both like one bigger building, not multiple buildings spread out, because you get a little bit of credit for that. Basically, if it's garden style, it's like a property that's 88 units and 11 different buildings off 20 acres. The property, the insurance agency sees a little bit less risk, because if one building starts on a fire, they're probably not all going to go up, right? Yeah. So if you have one building that's 96 units, or one building that's just 47 units, or whatever, and if it's older, right, being 70s or whatever, it's a bit. So like we had 2 of those properties, they went up 115% plus. Wow. One was like 115, and the other was like 123%. Increase in insurance.
Great nugget for anybody who's listening. Like you said, if you don't have to make the claim, don't, right? I mean, if you have the cash flow to do it, and I mean, again, these deductibles nowadays are high anyways, right? So if you have a $40,000 claim, but a $20,000 deductible, just pay it if you can, right?
Well, I'm like, at what point, like, do we just like start to self-insure more or whatever? I mean, we've been trying to take even higher deductibles since we're paying for a lot of this stuff anyways.
You continue to get, right? You can put the whole portfolio under it. And,
So, but it's a... but then you look at, okay, if I'm going to refinance a property and now your insurance just went up 123%, I mean, that's a big difference to the value.
Big number, right? That and taxes.
If it goes up, if your insurance goes up $50,000, that's going to be a difference of what? I mean, your $600,000 difference on the loan.
It's tough.
Right? $700,000 difference on the loan. So, is that math right? Yeah. It's about right. So it's a big difference. And if you're not expecting that, and if you're, but I remember like 2016, there were buildings like we got, you never waste a good hailstorm. Well, that's the insurance companies are getting the last laugh on that.
They're getting it back, and all the hurricanes obviously down south. That's a big factor of what's going on right now.
We're paying for a lot of that in Wisconsin.
We are, but I mean, also if we're gonna have a decent size increase, and we try not to be those owners that send out high renewals for our tenants, right? It's their homes, right? Some of them are fixed incomes, and but we have sent some emails out like, hey, just so you know, our taxes went up X, our insurance went up Y, utilities went up this. Our increase for you, it might seem a little bit big, but we're just kind of breaking even, right? So it's not like, hey, boo-hoo, you feel bad for me, but I just don't want them to feel like we're taking advantage of them in this market. And we're not trying to raise people $200 a month, right? I mean, in my mind, gosh, $100 a month to me is like still a big number. Like I try to keep it lower than that. But again, back to the communication for your residents too. It's like, hey guys, here's what we're dealing with too. Sorry for this bump, but hopefully we'll continue to do this.
With the value add game, we're on the opposite end of that.
Right.
We are going in, and I mean, we have rents like some of these properties.
Well, they're just under market, right? And way under market.
They're like, we'll buy a property in the 246 units in La Crosse. We bought this property, and it's in a great location, La Crosse. It was just really, really tough. We put about $6 million into it so far, and there's units there that were one bedroom going for like $580 a month, $700 a month. I mean, those are rents that are stuck in, what year is that? I mean, that 2006 to 2010 somewhere probably. And so, that's always tough. And I mean, it can be what a lot of people don't realize too with the value add real estate. It can be a hard transition.
Because you don't want to just come in and be those assholes, right? You just want, like, you're coming in as a new partner with them. And if you can show them, which, I mean, if you're putting $6 million in the property, it's like, hey, we're making this safer, we're making it better, we're adding these new amenities.
Some of them even then, they're like, I don't care, just keep it as is. It's like, well, did you know that the city, so the seller didn't disclose this to us before we bought that deal, but he'd already gotten 2 notices from the city. When we bought it, a week later, we got the 3rd notice from the city. And that notice said, if you fail to repair the siding and fix the landscaping issue, because there was landscaping just overgrown, growing into the building. I mean, it was like, it kind of looks like that Will Smith movie, I Am Legend, when the whole, like, it's like, it's just taken over. The world's just taken over. Mother Nature's taken over. That's what it looked like, holes in the side of the building. So the city of La Crosse gave us, you know, the third, this is your third warning, beginning on, you know, such and such date, which was like 10 days from when we got the notice, you're going to be getting $1,000 a day fine. And I'm
Right.
like, so like you start to tell that to some of the people, and I'm like, oh, okay. But
you can't
even
please
then,
anybody, but you'd be surprised. I'm sure in a number of tenants that are in new buildings, like, okay, I know an increase is coming because you're actually taking care of it and you're improving it. So.
And it is cool. I mean, you know, the times that I'm walking through there and stuff, when I try to make it a point to talk to some of the people and whatnot, and let them know that I'm one of the owners and, you know, all this stuff. And they're like, oh, we love it. I love my view and I love what you're doing. So it's awesome to hear that end of it, because, you know, the 20 to 40% or whatever that are unhappy in that first initial transition wave on a property like that are really, really, really loud. And so it's nice to hear from the other end.
You want the ones that appreciate what you're doing, and usually the ones that are barking at you probably aren't going to stay anyways.
Yeah. So
it's interesting. You've got Justin, who you've built your portfolio on the value add concept, and Brett, you've kind of really started to build your core now is the development side. So you've kind of got the two ends of the multifamily kind of game and strategy. What led you from buying a couple of smaller properties and to transition into I really want to put my focus on the development front end side versus find an older property, do the value add? Like, what was
question.
the strategy
I think
on that?
two answers maybe. The first one is, we've never been the strategist of going out and marketing and trying to find deals, right? Whether it's, you know, I mean, have a number of broker relationships, but aren't really doing mailings and doing all this stuff to really find maybe off market or acquisition deals that way. It just hasn't been we're not good at it. And then, so two, the idea of developing for us was exciting, you know, creating something that was not there before or changing something. The dynamics of an area was pretty neat to us. We've done a lot of infill projects where I mentioned that healthcare clinic, but there's another one. There was 4 dilapidated houses that we took down and put up a building. So it's kind of neat to see how what we can do changes the surroundings. So it's more of the excitement for us. And again, we're not good at finding deals as much as maybe finding some opportunities to build.
Yeah, for me, it's been the opposite of, I don't want to have all that money out front where I know there's not a chance. And again, like some of our deals, you know, they're not really going to significantly cash flow for 6 months, a year and a half because of our repositioning anyways. But, you know, I don't know. For some reason, I've always just viewed what I do as less risky compared to what you guys do. And I think maybe it goes back to what you said about you know, finding the comps and whatnot, and especially in a city, you know, some of the smaller towns, it is a little bit of a shot in the dark. And I'm like, oh man, I don't want to be cash out for 2 or 3 years, and then even cash out for, you know, 6 months and not even know if a project's gonna. But we've still had some deals that have fallen apart. Not many. I mean, we go under LOI, we close 99% of the time. But
and again, there's risk to it, right? There's risk to it, and I think whether you're doing value adds, it's probably you know, I would say not less risky if you have, you know, the team in place to do it and the processes in place, and you know what the vision is. You'll get there faster, 100%. Right? In terms of a value creation, where development, you can get there. It's just going to take, you know, a couple of years.
And you're on the back end. You guys have so much less maintenance.
Oh yeah, I mean, again, like I mentioned to you, our maintenance guys are, you know, they're not even on call. Half the time, but it's, you know, newer properties are much easier to manage.
Yeah. You have a lot less
and lease up
issues
too, right? I mean, it's just
100%.
It's just,
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's kind of that, like, there isn't this is the cookie cutter way to be successful in real estate.
Right.
It's kind of what you said at the very beginning is know what you're good at and what you're passionate about, and then just press into that part of it.
Right.
And that's going to kind of help steer your strategy as to how you want to get into the game.
Yeah. And definitely. I think I almost laughed a little bit when you said the first one that you guys did was the vacant parcel, because we have a few of those that are vacant parcels next to it. And I'm like, if we ever develop, that's probably what we'll develop first. Because we could throw a 16 unit there, we could throw a 24 unit there, we could throw a 4 unit there.
Well, and you can, the land base is kind of zero, right? I mean, so it helps, right? From an overall cost standpoint.
And if we, you know, mess that up, I mean, you know, we can, to me, I'm like, we can recover or find a you know, way through that a lot easier. Because I think at some point, like I think what you said, like the excitement of creating something, I think that's awesome.
And you can kind of
So I
do
think
it the way
there'll
you
be at some
want,
point.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, all these properties you have purchased, like, I would have done that differently. Or,
Yeah.
I wish these bedrooms were a little bit bigger,
Yeah.
or, these kitchens are tight, or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, you constantly learn as to what you want, and you can develop that and create that with the architect. And
What do you guys, what's the long-term vision of what you guys are trying to do at Lakestone?
Good question. So so both my business partner and I, and our wives, I didn't even tell you that, our wives work in the office too, right?
Yeah.
So they kind of keep us in check. Every time
sure.
Brian and I want to like, hey, found this new opportunity. And they're like, don't overwhelm our staff, right? Don't overwhelm our team. They're like so protective of our team. I love it, right? But it's a good balance. But it's, we both have 2 girls. So I mentioned I have a senior, but I also have a freshman girl. My business partner, they have a freshman and a junior. So we're like, all right, we got, at least 4 years to be in town here, So the next 4 years runway wise, we're like, let's just, if the opportunities come up, let's just keep developing and doing it and having fun. And then from there, I don't see us selling. Again, we have an amazing team. Would love to see if there's opportunities for them to take over the management company, right? Can they have ownership in the management side of things? Because they're so good at it. The passion's there for it already. So can they make money off of it too? I want the team, I'm sure you do too, you want the team to be successful, right? And you bonus them, you do all these things that you can do, but hey, if they can get some ownership, and we've given some ownership to like our GC on some things, but how else can we give back to our team? They do so much for us, and we want to make sure they do that. So, as we kind of maybe remove ourselves from the office a little bit more, can they take over some of that ownership and of the management side of things, and maybe some of the properties we'll see. But again, as you know, real estate is cash flow, and that's what we live off of. So
100%.
we'll develop it and continue to take the cash flow from it, and then we'll see what happens after 4 years after the girls graduate.
Your girls play any sports?
Volleyball.
Yeah.
Mine love volleyball. And my younger one's in softball, she's a diver. Some other things going on, but
Got it.
yeah,
Cool.
they definitely keep you busy.
Did you ever coach them growing up?
No, just early on in soccer.
Got it. Okay.
But not a great coach. So
Yeah, we talked about it before on the podcast. I love coaching some soccer. I'm competitive out there, and I like to see the girls, get the. It's always trying to like, okay, how can I pass through some of the mentality of like what sports can teach you to take to the next part of life. So sports has been a huge impact on my life, and so it's cool to be able to impact some of the younger generation that way.
Definitely.
For sure. To learn work ethic and commitment and respect for.
Well, definitely with your kids, right? I mean, you see how other kids kind of react, and even kids that are in their 20s, right? Then you like, all right, what do I instill, or how do I instill good character into my kids that I don't want them to act like that, or I want them to act like that kid, right? That kid looked me in the eye, and they could talk to me, and without looking down, and they had ideas to share and some other things, and they weren't afraid, and so it's what can you do now? Again, 2 girls, high school, teenagers.
Yeah.
We have our moments, right? Is it going to be a good day?
For sure.
Can I talk to you?
No doubt.
Can I ask you how your day went today?
Yeah, no doubt.
Or should I stay away for a little bit? As a dad, as a guy, I think you want to try to fix stuff.
Yeah.
Right? So I've learned that I can't always fix things, but I can listen.
Yeah.
Right? So I can, and sometimes even my wife, right? Like try to fix things that they have come up, but they just want me to listen, right? They don't want me to fix it.
I just want to dive right in and fix it.
Right, because we're fixers. We just, hey, where's the problem? I can help, right? I can do this. I can fix this. But, and I still.
Sometimes I get you yelled at more.
Oh, it does.
For a little bit, yeah.
But even with my daughters, right? It's like, hey, I know something's going on. And as a dad, you just hurt because of your daughter. Your Noah's hurting. You just want to get in there and hug her and fix it. But sometimes the hug is all you need to do. So.
Yeah. And the time flies by. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's
nuts. Yeah, preparing for someone to go off to college is.
So when you guys are
cool.
like these bigger projects now, are you guys raising or getting any loans to then pay back some short-term notes, or what is that? How do you guys structure some of that?
Early, I would say up until 2018, 19, we did it just all ourselves, right? We would sell a duplex that we bought and put that into the deal. Sell a 4-unit, right? That was our equity along with our developer fee. But as these deals got bigger and we ran out of properties to sell, we've taken in some capital. And again, back to that fixed mindset I've said probably 3 or 4 times, we didn't want to bring in outside capital because we didn't want to disappoint, and fixed mindset for us was, well, what if we make a mistake? What if my family loses money? Because that's the people that are approaching us, right? Friends and family. Yeah. That's the biggest people that always approach your real estate investors, right? I want to invest. Can I invest with you? And we just were very hesitant because we didn't want to make a mistake with our friends or family's money. So then we're like, well, we've been doing this for 15 years. We haven't made a real mistake yet. Yeah. And we're doing pretty good. So why wouldn't we let them in? Yeah. So it just took us a while to be okay with that and be like, all right, they know what they're getting into too. And thankfully, everyone that's invested with us has done well and they want to invest more, right? Yeah. It's just that, again, that mindset of just, be open, have a growth mindset. And things are going to happen, but if you're doing what you know and what you're passionate about and what you're good at, it'll work out.
So are they structured as equity or notes?
Oh, we do it as equity. So anybody that invests with us is basically we'll put our developer fee in. There's maybe two different shares, like A shares and B shares, which I'm sure you do sometimes too. But our developer fee is a B share. Anybody who puts cash in, which we'll put our own cash into to any deal, and if you're putting cash into, you're an A share. So A shares get paid first, right? Preferred return. And then if there's enough money left, we'll get paid on our developer fee. And then if we need to raise $1 million and you put in $100,000, you're 10% owner. So the waterfalls for us, we'll probably change it because our attorney keeps on telling us we're way too nice to our investors, which again, it's friends and family and stuff like this. There's all these different ways to do things, but right now, it's just whatever you put in, that's the percentage owner you are. We'll probably change a little bit more to more of a waterfall approach.
That is a great deal for them.
It's a great deal. Yeah. And again, it's fine because it's our
you
family
raise money
and friends.
all day long at that.
Yeah, and but you
don't want to raise money all day long at that.
Right. No, I know, right?
Family and friends is, it makes sense.
And again, we have maybe 15 investors. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, and we've talked like maybe the next deal it's still going to be great for the investors, right? But maybe it's a little bit different than what we do now.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know because I know some people. There's some developers that they, again, I don't even know how they entirely structure it, but they take notes. They'll do notes and then
and just pay it back, and then they own it all.
And they own 100%. So I don't know if that's what your guys' structure was, or no. So it's 15 investors. They're only primarily in the bigger assets now, like
not all of them are on the same ones, right? There's we have one that is a high school college buddy, right? Yeah. He's awesome and. He just got into some of the early ones, and he just wants to keep investing, and he never asks any questions. And again, he's our neighbor, right? So he got any more deals, right? Yeah. And he's just a great guy. And other ones, he'll just be like, hey, we need a little bit more money for this one. Some we have maybe 3 investors on. This one in Stoughton here, we have our most. We have like 10 investors on.
Gotcha.
So,
that's a big property.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's 160 units. That's awesome. Do you guys see yourself building? I mean, probably in the communities that you're building in, probably not. But do you guys see you guys building a higher unit count? Or do you think like 160 where that, the 2 phases, 80 and 80, do you think that's kind of the biggest properties you'll do?
And especially the community-wise. Yeah. We've looked at other projects in other maybe larger communities. Like, hey, how can, this one, geez, we could do a 10-story here. Or we could do a 6-story here. And we just haven't pulled the trigger on them, or for one reason or not, they just didn't work out. But for communities like this, I think that smaller neighborhood type feel where it's not over 3 stories, just fits in better. It's, neighbors can just feel better about it. It's not feeling like a
3 that you're building here in Stone? 3. I don't know if they're 3 or 4. Yeah. Those vaulted ceilings upstairs?
We do have some, yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't do them on first phase, right? You always walk through like, oh my gosh,
there's no vaulted
why didn't we do these on the first phase?
There's not.
And like, oh my gosh, what are we doing, right? So, of course, you're always learning. It
seems like they're vaulted enough that I was just figuring 100%, that they were...
There's so much space up there. You're just like, that was wasted.
That's why I'm like, I can't remember if it was 3 or 4 stories because of how they're big.
And we tried to do, like, Stoughton has a big Norwegian background. So the architect tried to create more of that look in those buildings. So I tried to do a little something different for each property. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Joel? Brett, well, I appreciate it, man. I don't know if there's anything else you want to share or not or talk about, but man, I appreciate you.
Like I said, I love talking about real estate, so
always
happy
we'll
to
have
share.
Have you come back on sometime over the next 6 months or something and dive more into the TIF and the sheriff sales. I think
we can talk about storage. I would love storage too.
Storage too. Yeah.
It's all fun.
Do a couple more with you at some point. So, but best of luck, man. It's awesome to see you doing what you're doing, and I get inspired just by getting other people in here on the show. And
that's fun.
Listen to stories, and because it takes guts and courage to go out and do what go out and do. I don't think a lot of people can appreciate that from that standpoint of what an entrepreneur, brings to the table from that standpoint, the amount of, courage that it really does take and the amount of work.
Gotta have a pretty good risk tolerance, as you guys know, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, it's one thing to watch someone or read about someone doing it, but then when you actually go to take that first step and you're like, oh man, now I'm writing a check, now I'm signing on the loan documents, now we're breaking ground, and you don't even know for sure if you're going to hit the rents that you got. You
just hope so, right?
Right. I mean, it's awesome, and your success, inspiration, man. So I appreciate you taking the time to hop on the show.
I'll just encourage others too. Just development is intimidating, right? Because this, buying a property is one thing. It's there, you see it. You have, you can walk the units, development, you don't know what it's going to look like, but it's not that hard, right? I mean, it's there. I just wouldn't be, if you're interested in doing that, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to talk to you about it, walk you through some things, but it's something that's attainable for anyone out there who wants to put in the effort and the time.
Yeah. So, people find you on LinkedIn if they want to.
Yeah. LinkedIn. Yeah. Our website, lakestoneproperties.com, anything like that. So.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks, Brett.
You bet.